order. Who's reading the roll? Sarah?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Jackson,
Here.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Ms. Parker. Here. Mr. Bowen,
Here.
Ms. Cordova. Here. Mr. Huffman,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Here.
Mr. Lucero is absent, and Mr. Miller.
Here. Anybody called in? Did I hear some? No.
He's not
Nobody
coming.
online at all. Good. All right, second, next action is our invitation and the pledge of allegiance. If you all stand, Brian, if you need an invitation. And I will use the pledge. Ms. Cordova?
Heavenly Father, as we gather here today, we gather in your name. We ask that you come into our meeting and guide us. We ask you to help us make decisions that are pleasing to you, to your teachings. We ask that you stay with our staff as they manage our city and with us as a council as we make decisions that are pleasing to you. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Perfect friendships among the people.
Business. Minutes of the previous meeting that was held April 25th, 2023, that was changed, but there in your packet. The directions or additions to those minutes, if not, I would entertain action to approve those minutes, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, state by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Got some presentations. This is next week, and the chief is with us. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I apologize for not having my personnel here. A landing zone training popped up at RGH at the same time, as well as a retrack meeting. So we're trying to divide and conquer. This year's EMS week is May 21st to the 27th. It's a perfect time to honor those on the front lines dedicated to providing emergency medical response that saves so many lives every day. This year's National EMS Week theme is Where Emergency Care Begins, which is particularly meaningful to us at Portales Fire Department as we face many response challenges while striving to meet the needs of our community. Also on Wednesday, May 24th at noon, right after the tornado sirens, we'll have our annual moment of silence for all fallen first responders at Station 1 around our flagpole, and everybody's welcome to join us. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Thanks, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Think that is, and then I've got a proclamation here to read for you anyway, and I'll read that and I'll present it to the.
Yes, sir.
Proclamation reads emergency medical services, May 21st to 27th, 2023. Whereas the Portales Fire Department Emergency Medical Services is a vital public service and personnel are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. And whereas the members of the Portales Fire Department Emergency Medical Services team engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and accomplishments of the Portales Fire Department emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore, I, Ronald L. Jackson, Mayor of the City of Portales, New Mexico, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st to 27th, 2023 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme EMS, where emergency care begins. I encourage the community to observe this week with appropriate activities, recognitions, and appreciation. Right. Keep Richard Friday on staff.
Thank you, sir. And
What you got them running everywhere. The other than done. I could give them all down the back. We'll be. The 2021 audit. Road. Are you doing that for us? I'm sorry, what's your name, Road?
Juan Garcia.
Juan Garcia, I'm sorry. We're done. You told me one. I wrote down. We call work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Okay, and one more correction, it's 2022 audit, sir.
2022.
Yes, sir. Well, good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Juan Garcia. I'm the audit specialist for Beasley Mitchell and Company. I was one of the few people over here that conducted audit this past year. I've actually been conducting this audit for the past about 6.5 years. Say half because it was 1 year I only came and assisted a little bit. I want to start by thanking management, including Maryland. They were wonderful in the process. They helped us by providing all information in a timely manner. They were always available for any of the questions we needed. So we want to thank her for all the work she has done, particularly this year and all the other years in the past that she has helped us. This is the last year we're allowed to do the audit, so I want to thank all of you all for hiring us and to take care of it. We really appreciate it, and we really enjoyed coming to Portales to do the work. We can start on the page 2, please. Page 2 doesn't have a number at the bottom, but it's the first page with a letterhead. About 3 down, 4 down. This one right here.
Right here.
Yes, thank you. Here in the first part of this letter is our opinion. This letter and the 2 letters that will come up a little bit later are the only 2 portions of the audit that are proprietary to Beasley Mitchell and Company. The rest of the information that comes out here comes from y'all's management. We just compile it together and put it in an organized fashion. Here we do have an opinion, and the opinion does state that it's a non-modified opinion. It is the best opinion that you can get. It does state that we hold no reservations and that we believe that the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. If I can go to page 5, please. And this one will be numbered. This one right here, perfect. This is the management discussion and analysis section. This is a template that was provided to us by management in the past, and we just kind of updated to be the information that is more current. What this is a breakout of what happened throughout the year, a little bit more in management words of what happened with the city from fiscal year July 1st all the way to June 30th, 2022. We did compile it for them, but of course, this template doesn't come from us, it comes directly from them. If we can go to page 16, please. The title of it will be government-wide financial statements. And it's the next one right here. These financial statements are the financial statements that are considered government-wide. What the difference between these financial statements and what is presented to y'all on a monthly basis by management is that these financial statements do include a lot of long-term items like your capital assets, long-term debt. Something new that we recorded this year that wasn't here in prior years is that also what is GASB 87, which is a new leases that we had to record as capital leases. But it is other than that, it is representative of what you all are doing, but more as if you were running like a business instead of as a government. We can go please to page 20.
This one?
Yes, ma'am. This here, page 20 is the fund financial statements. These are the financial statements that are more representative to what you are presented on a monthly basis. This is more on what we call the modified accrual basis. It's all on cash because we do record 60 days worth of accruals, which is accounts receivable or payables, and nothing else longer than that. So it does just basically show cash coming in, cash coming out, and a little bit of cash that will be coming in and out in the next 60 days. Go to the next page on page 21. I'm sorry, no, not 21. Yes, 21. And this is the reconciliation. This is the reconciliation to the balance sheet. On page 23, we will see the reconciliation to the income statement. And here's where you do show the differences between what the fund financial statements are showing and the top financial statements are showing. So it'll show you what the capital assets are and what the long-term debt is as well, including your net pension liability. We can go to page 24, please.
This one?
Yes, ma'am. These are your budget for your general fund. But we only have to present budgets for general funds and any major special revenue fund. Only the general fund qualified for this. We do analyze the budgets outside of the financial statements. And we're happy to report that we're all presented fairly. You do have positive expenditure variance of 1.1 million on the general fund, which is really good. And if we can move to page 26. Okay, these financial statements are for your proprietary funds. Proprietary funds are considered anything that generates money for the government, like a business. Here we do include the water, the solid waste, the airport, and the convention center. We do have a ending net position of 35 million. Of it, 13 million is held up in capital assets. So what it says, in a perfect world, if you were to sell all your assets right now, you would be getting about $35 million minus the capital assets of 13 million. Of course, that would be in a perfect world if you would get full value for it, but that's just basically an explanation on what that means. We can go to page 32, please.
This one?
It's one more, I think. And one more after, I'm sorry. And these are the beginning of the notes. There's two portions of them. As the beginning portion goes from about page 32 to about page 46. And it outlines all the accounting policies and measurements we did use to compile your information. It's really boring if you want to go through it. It's even more boring with this presentation. So from page 47 to page about 82. It's a little bit more of a breakout. It gives you what all the items that are on the balance sheet are. So it'll give you a breakout of the accounts receivable, of cash, and how much cash you have in each bank, as well as it'll give you a little bit more breakdown of that the standard I talked about earlier. My computer froze. Okay, if we can go to the end of the notes, I think it's about page 82. Mr. Earls is right there. I think it's a couple of pages, about 4 pages up. And one more, right here. This is the schedule of contributions for your public employees retirement. What this is that it shows the net pension liability breakout in the past 8 years so far. This is what we call 10-year rule. We didn't implement this rule until 2015. Once we get to 2024, then we'll start rolling over. But I'll just tell you the changes in net pension liabilities. I mean, you can see because it's subject to report because of COVID, your net pension liability actually dropped down a lot since a lot of people passed and there's a lot less people to cover. If we can scroll down about 10 pages, we're going to see a report with another letterhead like the one we saw at the beginning. A little bit more. Right here. Okay, this is a report on internal controls. This report does not state an opinion. What this does tell you is that we do look at controls. We make sure that these controls are in place, but we do not test them to make sure that they're operating effectively. Because of that, what we do is that we actually test the accounts substantially. We do go into each different account and say, let me see these receipts, let me see this paperwork, let me make sure that this is correct, instead of me asking, let me see what kind of controls are in place. There is a few controls that the state requires to look at, and a few little bit that we did look at look great. So there's nothing to worry about in that sense, but we did not test them fully. And about 2 pages down, and there's another report with a letterhead. This is Independence Audit Report on compliance of each major federal program. What this is a report on single audit. What we do is that since you all have over expenditures over $750,000 related to federal grants, we have to test these grants individually. We go through this process where we do a major program determination based on risk. We select these few programs based on these risks, and we test them thoroughly based on compliance. I'm happy to report that there was a non-modified opinion, and what it states is that we do not hold any reservations on this reporting on the financial statements and material as a whole. So basically, it means that in your compliance section, you have complied and everything correctly. The 2 major programs we did select is the Coronavirus Relief Fund, and the second one was the Clean Water Revolving Loan. That clean water revolving loan has been going on for a few years now. We will be testing it because of the size of it for the next, I think it's like 10, 15 more years. But the thing is that you'll be testing and you'll be hearing about it, but the testing, all it states is all we do is check to see if the what payment was made, since all expenditures and all the work has already been conducted a few years back. We can go back down a little bit till we see the findings. There you go, please. We do have two findings. It's a little bit difficult for us to give you findings because the city does operate very well. And we're very proud of what Maryland does. But these findings did happen, so we do have to report them, although they are fairly small. The first one is a capital asset certification, and we consider another non-compliance. That is the lowest level of finding risk that we can give. The highest would be what we call a material weakness. All that happened is there was a few items that were in the list this year that have been removed from operation in the prior year. It was certified, so stating this is our list of capital assets when we got it. They had already been removed. So there was nothing really in accounting sense that was wrong because instead of them missing, they were overstated. But we did have to put in that finding. The second one was something that we noted while we were doing just review through your policies and procedures. We did note that in your policies and procedures, it states that the only place that can receive any payments is City Hall through the window. And we did have a note that there was some payments made for fuel in the airport directly. So we had to write this up. We didn't note any cash findings or anything missing or anything like that. It was just that your policy and procedures say that that's not where the money needs to be coming in. Any questions, anything I can help answer?
Good job, staff. Blessed
Yes.
to have Marilyn and her folks working hard for us. They do a good job, and you guys are all doing a good job. We're gonna get expertise, but
We're still available for any help if you want any consultation, anything like that. And in 2 years, hopefully you find a good auditor. In 2 years, you're not happy. You can always come back to us.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Consent agenda. Items on there, I would contain a motion to place the 2 items on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion by Mr. Cordova, second by Mr. Miller. Take a roll call to put them on. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Pardon?
Okay. Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Bowen,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Heflin,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Mr. Miller.
Yes. Okay, and those 2 items are, first item is an award for the engineer's contract. And the second item is an approval of the change order for the Blackwater well field, equipping contract. I make a motion to approve the decision in this. Second. By Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Robertson. Pardon, we read the roll one time?
Yes, sir. Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Bowen,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Heflin,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Now we have a few action items. The first one is an option to opt in to the regular local elections. Pardon? Was there no? Are you presenting this item?
Yeah, I think Mandy's presenting.
Okay, Mandy, it says Carter Williams and we man, so. I don't even know man.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just have to tell you that there is deadlines if you want to opt in. You haven't chosen to opt in. It's been an option the last couple of years, since 2019. The deadline to opt in, if you choose to do so, is June 30th. And if you choose to do so, you have to opt in by ordinance, which means you would need to, at the very next meeting, do your intent to publish the agenda, then you'd have to have it published for 2 weeks. Or not the agenda, the ordinance, intent to adopt an ordinance, publish it for 2 weeks and then vote on it after that. So the timeline kind of is important if you intend to opt in. The benefits of opting in would be that Carla and Joanne and whoever else helps with that wouldn't have to do the work that they do. That would be handled by our office along with the other entities that are going to be on the November ballot. The November ballot is the regular local election, and it consists of the non-political, nonpartisan entities like school boards, soil and water conservation districts, and the hospital board. The other benefit to opting in is that if you're on that ballot, it's covered by the Secretary of State's office. The whole election is covered by the state versus if you manage your own election in March and stay the way you've done it in the past, then you keep paying for it the way you've done it in the past. And I'm sure you've already budgeted this year for next year's election, but you could then reallocate those funds for something else if you choose to opt in. The positions that would be on the ballot in 24 would be Ms. Cordova, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Heflin, and Mr. Lucero. And then the other 4 counselors, the mayor and Judge George, would be on the following year, the following 2-year term. You have 2 options to either extend the terms of everybody that is on the ballot by 2 years or shorten them by 3 months. If you chose to opt in, you would shorten the term by 3 months. And that's actually everybody's term, not just the 4 that are coming up, because these 4 would be shortened now, and the other 4 plus the mayor and the judge would be shortened in 26 by the same 3 months. If you
I'm sorry, do we have the option to extend it?
yes,
There's an option to extend it or short.
yes. If you choose to extend it, that would put everybody on the same cycle. And then in 26, everybody would be up for election at once, which is not a best practice. So then you would in 26 correct that by the people that are on this 26 cycle already would then run for 2-year term, and then they would run again in 2 years so that you would be off cycle again. But you do have the option of extending. The better option, in my opinion, would be to shorten by 3 months.
So you keep referring to 26 and 24, you're actually in 23 and 25, right?
Yes.
These elections are held in the odd.
They're held in the odd year, but then you take office on January 1st of the even year, 24 and 26.
Held in the odd.
Right, correct.
So in other words, if we voted to opt in, then we have 2 options. One is to shorten, which means that the 4 that you announced a while ago would have to file when?
August 9th or 19th.
And then that election would be the first, used to be November of 2023, right?
Yes,
And then, and so instead of their term expiring in March of 24, it would expire December 31st of
23. Yes. And then if they were reelected, they would take office again on January 1st of
So
24.
in other words, if we opted in and we did the short one, we're shorting the current term we have literally by 2 months.
Three calendar months, yes. January, February, and March. Mhm. Yeah.
Let me help. But if we decide to extend, then everybody would run in
25.
November of 25.
Mhm.
Those 4 would run for a 4-year term. The rest of us, including the mayor, would all run for a 2-year term.
No,
We-
Yeah.
Okay,
No, the 6 that were up for election anyway in 26 would run for a 2-year term in 25. So the 4 that are elected would be elected for a 4-year term, and then everybody else would be a 2-year and then. You said,
First 4 you mentioned. If we extend, we get a 4-year term, the 6 that you mentioned afterwards, the mayor and the municipal judge. Get a 2-year term and then another 2-year term, then we be back on the staff.
one 2-year term, and then they'd run for 4-year terms
Right.
following that, yes, correct. Yes,
So. I guess we would need to decide whether or not we want to publish it, and then the publication would have to indicate. Which we're doing, either we're gonna shorten the terms, or we're gonna lengthen the terms, or we don't do anything.
that's correct.
But am I correct in saying that if Senator Ivy Soto has his way, we're gonna do this anyway at some point in time?
He no longer sits on Senate rules, but yes, that's correct.
Don't count him out. That he
Yeah.
did sit on Senate rules.
He doesn't chair Senate rules anymore.
And I think Senator Duty would want this to.
I think so too.
I think we're eventually, whether we do it now or later, I think we're gonna be opted in whether we like it or not.
I think you're correct about that. I sent you an email, or it might have been in your packet, that was a newspaper article that the city of Hobbs has decided to opt in. The city of Hobbs is the last large city that has not already opted in. And they are the entity with the deep pockets that would prevent the Senate from kind of pushing that through. So I think sooner rather than later, it's no longer going to be an option.
And am I correct? It was only 11 that had opted out before Hobbs opted in.
Uh,
There weren't
It was like
13.
26 in 11 counties.
Okay.
So nearly every municipality, we have 2, just you and Elida. And then Valencia County has a big bunch, 6 or 7 of their small municipalities that are not opted in. But 26 total in 11 counties have not opted in, but Hobbs was the last big city to do so. The last holdout.
Any other questions for Ken? Any questions at all?
It's confusing. I'm trying to. There's a handout that Joanne sent at your place. She emailed this afternoon.
I didn't see it, but, and it is Joanne's,
Yeah. The original resolution, and then an email, and then the cost of what it cost us last time.
Yeah.
That she wanted you guys to have.
I believe at one time, Andy, you thought we spent a heck of a lot more than that.
how much does it say you spent?
7,600.
76.
75, 43.
I figured about 8,000.
Now, did you say that if we were to go opt in, this would be like in the November elections?
November of odd numbered years, yes.
You know,
November of this year.
specifically, it would bring more people out to vote.
Yes, it would.
And I think that's one thing in the past that's, I guess, disappointing is that when we do have local elections, we go through the whole step by step and the funds and how much it costs and the time and everybody that's doing it together. And then when it comes to voting, it's just not really good results.
Very low.
And that's always been
Yeah.
what's happened in the past, so.
Yeah, and low
When
turnout is
if we were
disappointing.
To opt in, that would increase, with them coming up for the other elections that are occurring at that time, it would increase that attendance in the city local elections.
I think it would, and I think it would benefit the other entities too, like the public school board and the hospital district that have a low turnout in nonpartisan elections anyway. In 2019, the Dora School Board had a tax on their, that had a bond question for their school board. And they had a total of 89 voters. 62 of those voters voted in the tax, and it affected all the voters, not just the 62 of them who voted in favor of it. In the 2017 school board, Elida School Board, they didn't have contested races, and they didn't have new people on the ballot, and they didn't have a tax. But out of all of the eligible voters, 5 people cast a ballot. That was the 3 incumbents, the superintendent, and 1 teacher. That was it. And that ballot cost them over $100 per person per ballot, because their total election cost was close to $1,000, and 5 people voted, nearly $200 per person per ballot. That's crazy.
Yes, sir.
So if we go to the schedule that you're saying, are we gonna have to do the reporting like, it's done on the partisan?
The CFIS, yes.
And then report to the state. Appoint a treasurer.
I believe all campaign finances, all candidates have to do that anyway,
Yeah.
not for school board and not for city council.
We don't.
No. But I know that there's reporting that has to be done through your guys' elections, and then you have to appoint a treasurer, and then, of course, you'd run per your party, and then you'd be placed on the ballot again.
I believe that's only for partisan elections. And this would still be a nonpartisan election. Your party affiliation is not on the ballot in the November election, November of odd year elections. So I don't think that would force you to file a CFIS report.
We are nonpartisan,
Okay.
and it stays on.
And it's still.
All of those she just mentioned, school board, solar
Yeah.
conservation, hospital board.
You can vote
are
on
all
however you want.
nonpartisan elections.
Right.
So, and I think that's the reason, I'm almost positive.
I'm almost positive too, but I will check for you.
Thank you.
I'd have to look it up.
I have a question.
I'm done.
So. Let me make sure I'm clear of this. Meaning, if we were to direct staff to draft a notice of intent. And we decided to do the short. Then the 4 people that you mentioned that would be up in March, that would have to file in January anyway, would now have to file in August. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then the election would be held in November. They would complete this term, December 31st. And then their next term would be in January 1 of 26 and run through
24.
Yeah, okay, so,
Yes,
and would run through December 30th, 2021.
28, yes. 27, and then the new person would take January 1. Yeah. Correct. And then the same for the other 6th. Yes, correct. Then the same for the others on the other cycle. Their term would just end 3 months early at the end of their term.
We, that would be on that, would have to file in August of
25,
25.
correct.
And then that, if we did it that way, then everyone would still remain on a 4-year term.
Yes, that's why I say that's a better practice.
I think it is too, because, and in the next election, we have a mayor, I would hate to have to see a mayor run for 2 years and then
Yeah,
run again 2 years later, or even a municipal judge.
Yeah. that just makes more sense to me. And there may or may not be any newcomers challenging you for office, and it may not be an issue at all. If somebody does lose their reelection bid, then all they've lost is 3 months. Yeah.
Good information. Where were they picking at tonight?
Well, I think she said that we probably needed to have on our next agenda, the notice, right? So that we go, if this had to be turned into the Secretary of State by June 30.
June 30. Mhm. And you have how many more how many more meetings between now and three?
May 23rd, and then the second Tuesday in June, and then the fourth Tuesday in June, which is the 27th, 28th. It's cutting it really
Technically,
close.
you could do it in the first meeting in June, but it would be technically.
Or you could do it on your 23rd meeting.
Hmm.
You could do it on your May 23rd meeting.
I'm saying technically we do it in our first meeting.
Mhm.
for
Correct.
10 days, but it'd be better to do it in the next meeting.
Yeah.
13th and 27th.
Yeah.
June.
Yes, sir.
Did I hear you say, Andy, that we have to have an ordinance established? When would that? What is
Yes.
the timeline on that order?
The 15 days.
15 days?
Publish, do the notice of publication, publish for 15 days, actually 14, and then vote on it. And then, so you do still have time to either decide yes or no next meeting, and then ordinance, publication, then ordinance.
Point of order here, Mr. Mayor. We could go ahead and direct the staff to draft the notice of intent. Shorten the term and do the election in November of 23. Okay. And then at that meeting, we decided we could either not pass it and stay where we're at, or we decided that we wanted to extend that. We can do it then, but we can get the ball, I mean, because we can amend that notice, right? At the next meeting.
Yes, but if you amend the notice to change it to do the other way, if you amend it, then you have to publish it again for another 14 days.
You have to republish because you have to have.
Right.
Well, but if we adopt, if at the next meeting, we're going to adopt that notice, we can amend it and publish it. Correct?
Yeah.
Because we're gonna vote on the notice of intent. So at that meeting, we can make any amendment that, all we're asking you to do now is draft the notice. Bring it to us at our next meeting, and then we have time to think whether we want to extend, shorten, or not do it at all. So at the next meeting, we could do any one of those options,
That's correct.
but the notice, it could be on the agenda. In case we want to do anyone.
And even if you put the notice out and you do the publication and then you decide not to adopt it. You're still in the time frame and you don't adopt and you conduct your own election next March. That's all, those are all options.
Anybody has a question?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Whether we do it or not, there's, the state's still going to do it for us. They hear.
Likely, very likely down the road, the state will say, okay, it's no longer an option to have municipal elections separate. Very likely.
But it has,
It hadn't happened yet.
Oh, it hasn't happened.
no, it takes a legislature.
Well, it's just that like the liquor license. If we don't approve it, sooner or later, they will approve it.
They're just given the option now.
Now I change later.
But I'd like to go ahead and prepare it, put it on the agenda and get sorted out then.
We can even prepare three separate,
You don't have to prepare two. Because we don't.
That's right. First one, you know, two separate ones, put them on your agenda, just separate items and you approve one or the other.
I think that makes sense, Steve. Very kind of one minute.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I think that's good. It's been presented to us, so now we can kind of all think about it, and then in 2 weeks, we can kind of decide which one we want.
And you were very clear.
Thank you.
I appreciate the way your explanation.
Thank you. Yeah, so you're gonna do two choices, either extend or shorten your terms and or do nothing. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Resolution 22-23 42 is an acknowledging and accepting the fiscal year 2021-2022 audit. Meredith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. And you listened to our presentation, and they didn't get us the copies of the physical copies of the audit yet. We will get those to you as soon as we get them. If you had any questions about that, otherwise I would ask that you approve the resolution approving the audit.
From Meredith? Entertain action on resolution 21-23-42.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Cordova. Can we read the roll, Clara?
Yes. Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Bowen,
Yes.
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Hefflin,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
and Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you. Thank you. Hard work.
Thank you very much.
We're both here for staff.
And I have that resolution, that's fine. Item 3 is discussion, possible action on item to ban the sale of fire. I wanted to talk to Sarah, I think a little bit about that. Wanted to get a little information for us.
Yes, sir. At our last meeting, Ms. Walker asked us to consider a fireworks ban, so that condition we have here. Roosevelt County, Portales. And I thought it was somewhat of a good idea, but the fire chief reached out to me, and there is a state statute that states, it's 60-PT-7, section C, a municipality or county shall not by ordinance regulate or prohibit the sale or use of permissible fireworks, except aerial devices or ground audible devices. So the only thing we can really do is stop the sale of aerial devices or ground audible devices. I still think it's something we should consider. And I think in our ordinance, we have to give the public 30-day notice. So I think it really determines on the amount of rain it's here. I think in the forecast, we have some rain scheduled, but you know, that is all the time. I think if we don't get any rain in the next meeting, I think we should put it on the notice and to limit the sale of aerial devices or ground audible devices.
I just add that in the past, we usually followed the county's lead on the fireworks. Bans or use the fireworks ban. And that comes down from the state generally, right?
Yes, sir.
Right.
No, it has to be local. It has to be local. And like I said, and I think aerial is determined by anything over 8 feet.
Well,
It used to be.
our definition of aerial device means firework device that upon ignition propels itself or an insert a significant distance into the air. It doesn't give a specific height, but it does give examples as far as skyrocket, bottle rocket, missile type rocket, stick type rocket, helicopter, aerial spinner, Roman candle, and mine shell, but does not include model rockets.
Doesn't include bottle rockets.
It does not.
Well,
That's but it's a state
For a
statute.
hobby. That's our city ordinance.
Oh, you have a state statute where it says stick type rocket, so that's a ball rocket.
But I didn't think it, you know, I could get a cone that was used.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was considered an aerial, I guess.
No, because it's not leaving the ground.
Yeah. So I mean, it's my question, Councilman, is we have to give 30 days notice. Then our next meeting is when,
May 23rd.
and they can begin selling June 21st.
Do you think that they've already, you know, some of these vendors have already purchased their?
Probably stop. They probably have stuff left over from last year.
Mayor, if I may, we have already had inquiries about firework permits.
If they all come to you for that. Yes.
I think I've seen some construction getting ready to start.
Or, I'm sorry, Roster. Permanent sales chief,
Yes,
they come to review that.
No, I'm just thinking that the activity was already started.
Mr. Mayor, I have absolutely no problem in if we were to right now have most of the ban aerial devices, because those are the ones that you have no control over. And they're the ones that's gonna cause us problems in dry areas. Because, and in that way, our vendors have plenty of notice that we can do that by ordinance, right? We don't have to change the ordinance.
Well, I believe that's already in our current ordinance, sir,
What's that?
that it is
The council
banned.
could take that action.
Well, I believe it's already been taken. It says impermissible fireworks shall include all aerial devices as defined in section 12-61, also ground audible devices, except as defined in section 12-61. And that's just the definition section that I was reading.
So you're saying that.
Yes.
Those are in ban. Now, the issue with them being banned. The police. It's enforcement. You know, we have a little trouble enforcing them. You guys can only be in. You know, so many places at the same time, and even if the neighbor calls in and says, hey, this guy's. Busting those aerials, by the time you get there, you don't, it's just, you can't do anything about it, right?
Right, we could summons them into municipal court. Would be about the best we can do.
Yeah, and there's no penalty clause in our ordinance either, so. I think the biggest problem would be that if we banned them and say, I mean, I remember this been a long time ago. On South Avenue A, there was some shake shingles and a bottle rocket get in there and started the roof on fire. You know, I think the issue would be that if I let that bottle rocket and approved it, I'd be responsible for that damage. I'd probably be responsible for that anyway, that'd be one thing.
Negligent arson, yes.
Some of those, what they call them, they're dropping the tubes,
Artillery shells.
Shells.
they're fun. They're a blast.
Well, and just because we have an ordinance doesn't mean Clovis's ordinance mirrors the same.
Yeah.
Or Muleshoe where they can purchase them there and then bring them here.
Or
Or anywhere else.
But at least our vendors will know
Yes,
they can sell.
correct. And all fireworks stands are inspected before they're issued their permit.
You know what they say, but once fireworks are outlawed, we outlaw fireworks.
Yes,
Who, your guys inspect?
our inspectors do, yes. Now, that doesn't change the fact that they keep stuff under the table and there's a potential of stuff coming out, and our guys do periodic check-ins, and if I happen to be at a fireworks stand buying fireworks for my family and notice something, I may make the statement based on our ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, it seems like we already have the aerial devices banned in our city ordinance, right?
Well, it's good discussion, and I think it's something we think about as the weather, hopefully, nice and clear dries. Hopefully, all of them meet.
We have ran the forecast. So hopefully we can.
We got to appreciate it. All right, next item is appointment of the Roosevelt County Development Corporation Board member. Our representative, which was actually Mr. Our employee was Mr. Garcia, Joey Garcia of El Rancho. He recently moved away. And Chad has asked if it'd be okay if he served on there, and I thought that'd be a good representation for us. And Mr. Heffernan, do you have anything to add?
No, just, local business owner, I thought this would be a good opportunity for someone, whoever the council that could actually go to meetings and report back to this council. Exactly what went on, and that's why I asked everyone.
I make a motion that Councilor Chad Heffernan be put on the Roosevelt County Development Corporation as board member.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Robinson, second by Ms. Parker, all in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thanks, Chad.
Thank you, council.
All right, next item is public input, for which no action will be taken. Any matter not known about, which should not have briefly been foreseen prior to the time of the posting of the agenda. This agenda item is for development. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, limited to one presentation per meeting, and no more than 6 speakers on the sub. Councilors will not respond to comments and answer questions to avoid any violation of the Open Meetings Act. Direct any questions or requests for information to the city manager in writing during their business hours. Comments from the public? Anybody out there with anything to say? Public mentioned Sarah that music recital for her daughter singing recital. So she asked me to feel with that. Is her daughter a senior? Anyway, she sent me a tape of the young lady singing and it was pretty good. She was singing a Patsy Cline song, so maybe just to get her, we'll make her gonna sing for us. Council?
Mayor, I have one thing, just, what was the boys track team and girls track team, we're looking to say this weekend. They leave tomorrow, for safe travels and hopefully do the best they can do.
And what is it?
And they won this year. The girls won this last week.
Right. You have a runner?
I really want others,
That's the one. It's Parker.
I got it. Is there any way that the council or fire chief or somebody put some speed bumps on what is it, South Avenue and on First Street, from Pat's up to high school?
They have.
No, that's all Mercury. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
They have the dips.
They got dibs of limited when they fly to the dibs.
We gotta keep an eye on that chief and see what kind of like those business.
The reason I went with my son is on that street and I'm always going over there. He asked me if the chief could do something about it.
Those kids are hurrying back from lunch. They go back to school from lunch.
Late in the morning. I don't know.
Well, when my oldest son, when he was going to school, he got hit there. And he flew like, but he didn't get hurt too bad, broke his collarbone.
Right, I think it's something we need to look at. Thanks. Anything else at all? June 3rd, we're still planning our city cleanup. Is that right?
Yep.
You have anything to add to that?
We're gonna be meeting at Rotary, with all the people, get there 30 minutes early, to get kind of.
We're gonna set up the dumpsters over there at Rotary, is that what we're doing?
I'm not sure if the dumpsters are being set up there. I'm not sure exactly how they're orchestrated.
Set them out here in this parking lot, I guess, since we're still open, we may not.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Have the parking lot in here, but it has some roll offs to go remember the past and then people gather the trash and run it all there, so. We'll get some more information before that, at our next meeting in May, does that sound fair?
Yeah, on the 19th, Miss Joe and Kevin and Becky, myself and Miss Sarah are gonna get together to get all the details planned out, so.
Great. We'll have some more info by then.
Yep.
Good. All right, y'all, nothing else?